In our last video, we explored a very important topic that many people think they know it, but actually they don't. We spoke about what is karma, the real meaning behind it, beyond what we commonly think, and what drives karma, the hidden forces that shape our actions, and who truly receives the results. Is it only the doer or others too? And which part of us actually experiences the impact of karma, and the different types of karmas, and how they slowly tighten their grip on us. And finally, we understood how to handle and get rid of these karmas and go beyond them. And now, in this video, we are stepping into the next stage of our journey to understand what is Vedanta, and we'll explore the different Vedantic philosophies like what is Advaita, what is Vishishtadvaita, and what is Dvaita. And we'll uncover the actual difference between these three primary schools of Vedanta. And again, Vedanta is a foundational concept before entering into Sri Vidya. And one more thing, this is again going to be a vast and a layered topic. So please listen with complete attention. Let's begin. The concepts of Vedanta and its great philosophies like Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Dvaita are not easy to explain in a way that everyone can understand. Even if we can explain, it's still hard to fully grasp it. But if we don't try to explain, people might think it's too complex or believe that these paths are totally different and even contradictory. And that can lead to unnecessary confusion and misunderstandings, which may harm the true spirit of Sanatana Dharma. And that's why, despite the challenge, it must be explained. Because when these truths are understood the way our sages intended, they don't divide us, they unite us. And that is exactly what I'm trying to do here. To understand Vedanta, we must begin at the very beginning. A foundation built not on belief, not on religion, but rooted in the purest knowledge and the highest wisdom. And that is Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma has many sacred scriptures like Shrutis, Smritis, Puranas, Itihasas, and many more. The first one, Shruti. The word Shruti is often translated as that which is heard, referring to the divine revelations. But there is a deeper meaning. Shruti also means that which flows in rhythm. They have to be chanted in a specific rhythm, flow with a precise sound pattern and with a perfect tone, because only then they reveal their true power. These Shrutis are called Apaurusheyas, not composed by any human mind. And on the other hand, scriptures like Smritis, Puranas, Itihasas are called Paurusheyas, written and composed by humans. And these Paurusheyas are entirely based on Apaurusheyas. That means the root and the foundation of all these scriptures like Smritis, Puranas, Itihasas is Shruti. And what are these Shrutis? They are the oldest, grandest, greatest, and the most sacred scriptures, none other than the Vedas. The word Veda comes from the Sanskrit root word Vid, which means to know. But this knowing is not an ordinary knowledge. It's not something you learn from books or logic. The Vedas are absolute knowledge, intuitive, eternal, esoteric, and the knowledge of the truth itself. And in Western traditions, time is seen as a straight line. But in Sanatana Dharma, time moves in cycles, repeating again and again. It moves in great endless circles. And at the start of each cycle of creation, Brahma, the Lord of creation, would reveal the eternal truths of these Vedas to the great rishis. And these rishis then preserved these revelations so that humanity could benefit. And until the Treta Yuga, the Vedas remained pure, intact, and complete, guiding mankind with clarity and light. But as time passed into Dwapara Yuga, these divine truths began to fade. They became complex, fragmented, and misunderstood, reflecting the change in the mindset of humanity. This is where the great sage Krishnadvaipayana steps in. Like a master librarian with a divine mission, He gathered all the scattered knowledge and organized with this massive body of wisdom into the 4 distinct divisions we know today as Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda and Atharva Veda. And to make sure that the sacred knowledge was never lost again and that it could be passed down clearly and purely for generations to come. And with this sacred purpose in his mind, he shared the Vedas with his 4 main disciples. He taught the Rig Veda to Paila Maharshi, the Yajur Veda to Vaisampayana Maharshi, the Sama Veda to Jaimini Maharshi, and the Atharva Veda to Sumanta Maharshi. And each of them became a guardian of that sacred wisdom, carrying it forward through their students and lineages. And because it was Vishishtadvaita who gathered, divided, reorganized and preserved these Vedas, the world began to revere him as Vedavyas, the great organizer of Vedas. And it is because of his compassion and effort that the eternal Vedas continue to flow into our lives even today. And now, let's go a bit deeper. Each Veda has its own meaning, its own purpose, and a special role in guiding life. The word Rig means praise, Yajur means worship, Sama means song, and Atharva means a steady and a wise mind. But these 4 Vedas are not separate from one another. They are deeply interconnected and work together in harmony. Each Veda represents a special aspect of life and spiritual practice. Rig Veda symbolizes karma, that is, actions, duties, rituals, and ceremonies. And Yajur Veda represents kriya, that is, the sacred process. Sama Veda stands for bhakti, that is, devotion expressed through arts like singing, music, dance, etc. And Atharva Veda is for jnana, that is, true knowledge and wisdom. And the amazing thing is that all these 4 practices, karma, kriya, bhakti and jnana, are not confined to any one Veda. Each Veda holds all 4 within itself. The Rig Veda carries karma, kriya, bhakti, jnana, and in the same way, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda and Atharva Veda also upholds these 4 sacred practices, each expressing them in its own unique way. They all complement and complete each other, and this is why the Vedas cannot be seen as ordinary books. They are one unified body of wisdom, incredibly wide, deep and complex all at the same time. And the backbone of this entire system is Sanskrit. And simply knowing the language is not enough to unlock the power of Vedas. To truly understand the deep meanings, the hidden rhythms and sounds, and the true wisdom behind every word, you need the support of 6 special disciplines called as the Vedangas, known as the limbs of the Vedas. Each Vedanga strengthens your understanding of the Vedas. They are Siksha, Vyakarana, Chandas, Nirukta, Jyotisha and Kalpa. The first one, Siksha, teaches the sacred sounds, that is, how to pronounce every syllable perfectly, because even a single wrong sound can change the entire meaning of a word. Next one, Vyakarana. Vyakarana is the grammar. It reveals how words, phrases and meanings are formed and connected. And the next one, Chandas. Chandas teaches the rhythm and meter, that is, the musical flow of the mantras. The next one, Nirukta, explains the meanings and origins of words. It is like expressing 100 pages of thought condensed into a single word. The next one, Jyotisha. It is the study of the stars and time, understanding cosmic cycles that guide rituals and ceremonies. And finally, Kalpa. It gives the rules and instructions on how to perform these rituals. And together, these 6 Vedangas complete the knowledge framework that supports the Vedas. Now imagine this, learning and understanding all these layers, mastering every sound, every meaning, every rhythm and every ritual. How many years of dedication it would take? Could one lifetime be enough to completely grasp these sacred teachings? And this is why you can't simply read the Vedas like a normal book. They required and they still require a guru, someone who guides us patiently and shares the sacred knowledge contained within these Vedas. And this is also why, even though the Vedas were widely spread, not everyone could study them deeply. It was not because they were hidden, but because they required such immense preparation. So, to make this wisdom available to everyone, great sages like Manu, Parasara, Yajnavalkya, and many other great rishis composed these Smritis. The word Smriti literally means remembrance or contemplation of what was first revealed in the Shruti, that is, the Vedas. The Smritis are the practical guides that preserve the essence of the Vedas and present their teachings in a way that is easier to understand and apply in our daily life. And there are 18 Smritis in total, and together they are known as the Dharma Shastras, that is, the sacred texts that guide us in living a dharmic and meaningful life. And not just this, there are also 18 Puranas and the great Itihasas like Ramayana and Mahabharata. And beyond these, each Veda has its own Upavedas as well. But right now, we are not going into all of them. Let us once again go back to the Vedas. Each Veda is divided into 4 sections. They are Samhitas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Upanishads. And each section has a special role to play. The first one, Samhitas. This section is known as Mantra Bhaga. That is, this section contains hymns, prayers, and invocations. And the next one, Brahmanas. Brahmanas explain the meaning of the Samhitas. They describe how to perform yajnas and other ceremonies mentioned in the Samhitas and explain the value of rituals and give procedural instructions. And the third one, Aranyakas. The Aranyakas also deal with rituals, but they shift the focus. They focus on the symbolic and spiritual meanings behind the rituals, guiding the seeker from external action to inner reflection and meditation. And finally, Upanishads. The Upanishads contain the highest spiritual teachings about the nature of the Ātma, that is, the individual soul, and Paramatma, that is, the supreme reality, and knowledge and path to liberation, that is, moksha. And each of these 4 sections also corresponds beautifully to the 4 stages of human life, that is, ashramas. The Samhitas are meant for brahmacharis, students in the early stage of life who are trained in discipline, self-control, and values. The mantras guide them towards purity of thought and purpose. And the Brahmanas belong to the Grihasthas, that is, householders who carry family and social responsibilities. And the Brahmanas guide them in performing duties and rituals with devotion and balance. And the Aranyakas are for the Vanaprasthas, those who have withdrawn from worldly life and seek solitude in the forest. These texts guide them to turn inward and meditate on the deeper meaning of the existence. And the Upanishads are for sannyasis, that is, for the renunciates who have given up all the attachments and are devoted solely to realizing the supreme truth. The Samhitas and Brahmanas together form the Karma Kanda, and the Aranyakas are known as the Upasana Kanda, and finally, Upanishads are known as the Jnana Kanda. And the Karma Kanda is known as Aparavidya, meaning lower or external knowledge related to karma and duties. And the Upasana Kanda and Jnana Kanda is known as Paravidya. I repeat, Upasana Kanda and Jnana Kanda is known as Paravidya, the supreme knowledge dealing with ultimate truths and liberation. And among all these 4 sections of Vedas, the last section, that is Upanishads, which are known as the Jnana Kanda, is very, very, very important. The word Upanishad itself has a beautiful meaning. It comes from 3 parts, Upa, Ni, and Shad. Upa means near, that is, to come close. Ni means with firmness or with devotion. Shad means to sit or to destroy. Here, the disciple who is a Brahma Jignasu sits close to the Guru, who is a Brahmajnani, with respect and discipline, listening to the Guru's teaching, that is Brahmopadesa, about the supreme truth. And in that sacred moment, the student asks their deepest doubts and the Guru clears them one by one, revealing the ultimate truth. This beautiful dialogue forms the very essence of the Upanishads, and by that teaching, ignorance is destroyed and the highest secret and sacred knowledge is revealed, that is the Parabrahma Tattva. Because they reveal the Parabrahma Tattva, the Upanishads are also known as Brahma Kanda. And all the Upanishads are in the form of a Guru Sishya Samvada, that is a conversation between Guru and Sishya. And there are about 1180 Upanishads connected to the 4 Vedas, but out of them 108 are considered important according to the great Guru Śrī Ādi Śaṅkarācārya. And among these 108, the 10 most significant are Aitariya Upanishad from Rigveda, Kathopanishad and Taittiriya Upanishads are from Krishna Yajurveda, and Isavasya Upanishad and Brihadaranyaka Upanishads are from Sukla Yajurveda. And here I am not going into the details of what is Krishna Yajurveda and what is Sukla Yajurveda, because it really doesn't have any importance for this topic. And the next, Kena Upanishad and Chandogya Upanishads are from Samaveda. And next, Prashna Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad and Mandukya Upanishads are from Atharva Veda. Every Upanishad speaks only of Parabrahma Tattva or Paramatma Tattva, that is the source, the cause and the eternal reality behind everything. And for a long time, the Upanishads were more than enough. They carried the truth and seekers found their answers within them. But as time passed, many different schools of thought arose, especially from the Nastikas or non-believers, and slowly a crisis of confusion began to spread. They started raising questions like why there are so many different gods in Vedas and why there are so many different spiritual paths, and some even went further and they questioned the authority of the Vedas themselves. But the truth is, the Vedas are ultimately talking about only one thing, that is the Parabrahma Tattva. But why did this confusion arise? Because they never really spent time to study or understand what the Vedas or the Upanishads are saying. Without diving into that wisdom, they stood outside and throwing questions just to prove that the Vedas were wrong. So the eternal truth and the foundation of our spiritual world was suddenly under attack from impatience and ignorance, and it needed a powerful defense. So, to guide seekers and bring clarity, again the great sage Vyasa Maharshi composed the Brahma Sutras, where he elegantly summarized, defended and re-established the truth revealed in the Upanishads through the philosophy of Advaita Vedānta. So, the summary is the Upanishads are the essence of the Vedas and the Brahma Sutras are the essence of the Upanishads. I repeat, the Upanishads are the essence of the Vedas and the Brahma Sutras are the essence of the Upanishads. Since this wisdom appears right at the end of the Vedas, that is Veda plus Anta, it is called Vedanta. And this is the final piece of the puzzle and the core of our discussion. And when we speak of Vedanta, we are really speaking of the Upanishads and the Brahma Sutras together. And that is the highest knowledge and the very heart of Sanatana Dharma. And think about it, if it takes this much time for me to just explain it to you in simple words, imagine how long it would take to actually study all of this, and then again how much effort it takes to truly understand them, and then how deep we need to go to finally bring that understanding into our experience. Not days, months or years, it takes lifetimes. And that is the reason Bharatiya philosophies are not easy to understand for a person who is outside of this Dharma, because these are not just ideas for someone to read and know. They are meant to be lived. They are supposed to be felt, and they are intended to be experienced in our hearts. Until now, whatever we understood is just the history of Vedanta, and now the real journey starts. We understood that the word Vedanta is a combination of two words, that is Veda, which means knowledge, and Anta means the end or the ultimate goal. And Vedanta is not just an ending, it is the beginning of a beautiful journey, that is self-realization. Vedanta is the point where all knowledge known to humankind reaches its highest peak. It is India's greatest philosophical system that dares to ask the most fundamental yet profound questions like, who am I? And what is this creation? And what is the foundation of all this? And how am I connected to everything that exists? And the real answers to these kinds of questions require not simply book learning or theoretical knowledge, but a deep insight. And this insight is called Jnana, that is wisdom, turning one's consciousness towards Parabrahma. And this alone is the gateway to the spiritual freedom that is called moksha. And Vedanta gives you a logical, step-by-step method for finding true happiness built on eternal universal truths and not founded on any individual like other religions. And now, let us understand the different Vedantic paths. And there are many Vedantic paths, but the most well-known ones are Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Dvaita. And apart from these, there are some other paths also like Dvaita, Shuddhadvaita, Achintya, Bheda, etc. But the first three are the most prominent ones. And again, these three philosophies are very big topics, and I'll try to explain in simple way so that you can understand easily. The first one, Advaita. The word Advaita is non-duality, means that there are no two separate things. Everything that exists is only one. It means the Ātma and the Paramatma, that is the individual soul and the supreme soul, are one and the same. And when you truly know yourself, you realize you are none other than the Paramatma. And this is what we call it as self-realization. And this philosophy is the core and the heart of Upanishads and Brahma Sutras. And this philosophy was given by Vyasa himself. But it was Śrī Ādi Śaṅkarācārya who firmly re-established it. And the next one, Vishishtadvaita, that is Qualified Non-Duality. Here, the Ātma is distinct but inseparably connected to the Paramatma, like a part to its whole. And this system was taught by Rāmānujācārya. And finally, Dvaita Vedānta, that is dualism, says that the Ātma and the Paramatma are always completely different. And this is the direct opposite of Advaita. And this philosophy was taught by Madhvācārya. And now you might feel all this is confusing, right? So let me explain with a simple example using two circles. Imagine one big circle representing Paramatma, that is the supreme soul, and a small circle representing Ātma or Jivatma, that is individual soul. And in Dvaita, the small circle is completely separate from the big circle. That is, the Jivatma is different from Paramatma, but it connects to him through devotion, love, and surrender. And in Vishishtadvaita, the small circle is inside the big circle. That is, the Jivatma exists within Paramatma. It can move around, but all its movements are guided, supported, and cared for by the big circle. And again, the connection is through devotion and love. And in Advaita, the small circle grows bigger and bigger until it finally merges with the big circle. That is, the Jivatma and the Paramatma are not separate. They are one and the same. No difference remains. And there is always a debate between Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Advaita, that the followers of Vishishtadvaita and Dvaita agree, of course with some slight variations, that Vishnu or Narayana is the supreme reality. They embrace the divine with form as the ultimate truth. Advaita doesn't deny this. It says it is Saguna Brahma. Advaita says that there is an original and formless state. That is, when a devotee meditates deeply on the essence, they transcend all forms and realize this supreme reality. This transcendent realization is called the non-dual state. where there is only one reality beyond all forms, qualities and distinctions, and that is Nirguna Brahma. But this is exactly where the real confusion begins. Everyone believes their own path and their own philosophy is the correct one. To get clarity, we need to understand what is Saguna Brahma and what is Nirguna Brahma. Saguna Brahma means supreme reality with form and qualities. It is the divine that we can see, feel and relate to. It has qualities like love, kindness, compassion, strength, grace, etc. And when we think of Vishnu, Shiva, Devi or any other form of God, we are connecting to Saguna Brahma, the supreme infinite reality appearing in a beautiful form so that the devotee can connect, love and worship. Not because it wants to express as God, but because our love needs an image to connect. I repeat, our love needs an image to connect. Because the human mind cannot meditate purely on the formless. We need a rupa. We need a form to anchor our devotion. That is why many avatars, many forms or many gods to help us meditate and connect. But Nirguna Brahma is the same supreme reality beyond all names, forms and qualities. It has no shape, no color or no name. It is the pure, unchanging consciousness that cannot be described or worshipped as something. I repeat, Nirguna Brahma is the unchanging consciousness that cannot be described or worshipped as something. It is the silent awareness that is present in everything, everywhere, untouched, limitless and self-existent. We call it as Chaitanyam. Both Saguna Brahma and Nirguna Brahma represent the same ultimate reality. One with endless forms and qualities and the other is beyond all forms and qualities. And Nirguna Brahma manifests as Saguna Brahma. And finally, Saguna Brahma is God perceived and Nirguna Brahma is God realized. I repeat, Saguna Brahma is God perceived and Nirguna Brahma is God realized. And I am not saying that Dvaita and Vishishtadvaita are wrong. They both beautifully present the same truth through the relationship between the soul, the world and God, emphasizing the devotional connection between them. Now, instead of debating which path is correct, let's see how the actual sadhana, that is, the real practice should be done. We'll start with the Brahma Sutras. Brahma Sutras begin with Athato Brahma Jignasa, which means now, therefore, the inquiry into Parabrahma begins. But how do we begin this inquiry? Let's see. If we look carefully, the Vedas begin with karma, that is, with actions, rites, yajnas, worships, and sacred rituals. For example, the Rig Veda begins with Agni Mile Purohitam, and the Sama Veda begins with Agni Ayahi. In this way, every Veda begins with karma, symbolizing the beginning of action, devotion, and duty. But here lies a beautiful truth. The Vedas, which starts with karma, do not end with karma. Instead, they culminate in jnana, that is, in pure knowledge. And they first teach us how to act, how to worship, how to perform yajnas and rituals, etc. And they also explain the results of these actions. Yet, after guiding us through all of this, the Vedas softly reveal a deeper truth, that all these results cannot take us to the ultimate truth. And that's when they lead the seeker beyond action, beyond form, towards the realization of Parabrahma. It means we are first introduced to Saguna Brahma through karma and then to Nirguna Brahma. And this pattern is not accidental. It is a deliberate teaching and a divine design. From doing to knowing, from rituals to realization. This is the sacred path the Vedas reveal. Now, let's see what Puranas say. And by the way, Puranas are also written by Vedavyasa. And he understood that these profound teachings mentioned in Vedas needed a gentle introduction for the masses. And that is why in the Puranas, he uses engaging stories, Dharma Sutras, Niti Sutras, ethical lessons, etc. to draw people closer to the divine. And he begins by describing God in beautiful, relatable ways and encouraging stutis, stotras, pujas, and vratas, etc. And he also explains the results of these karmas, but ultimately he finishes the cycle by delivering the Jnana Bodha. And the Puranas are the compassionate bridge guiding a devotee from a life of ritual to a life of wisdom. And again, from Saguna Brahma to Nirguna Brahma. And even in Sri Vidya, we see the same tradition. Lord Hayagriva first describes the divine qualities of Lalita Devi, that is, the Saguna aspects of the goddess. And only later he reveals her Nirguna Swarupa, that is, the formless consciousness. And the Upanishads also follow this same approach. But the question is, why do we need to start with Saguna Brahma and then reach Nirguna Brahma? Because the human mind has a peculiar nature, that is Chanchala Swabhava. It never stays still, never rests in one place for long. To experience the true knowledge, this mind must be transformed. It must become Nischala, Sthira, with Ekagrata. And to reach that state, one must perform karma, experience the results, and slowly cultivate the feeling that God is not just in the idol, He also resides within me. And when this realization deepens, the boundaries of name, form, and the belief start to dissolve. We start to see that the divine is not something separate from us. We begin to understand that the divine is Nirakara, Nirvikara, Nirvikalpa, Nirguna, and Sarvantaryami. And when the seekers moves into that Nirguna awareness, over time, the great truth reveals itself. That is, Aham Brahmasmi. It is, I am the Brahma. And that is why one must always start with the Saguna Brahma, then move towards the realization of Nirguna Brahma. And hence it is said, Prathamam Saguna Masritya Tato Nirguna Masrayet. First take refuge in the Saguna, then move towards the Nirguna. Our journey begins with devotion and form and ends in the boundless silence of the formless. From karma to jnana, from worship to realization, and from Saguna to Nirguna. And that is the path shown by the Vedas, Puranas, and the great masters. And this is the Sadhana Paddhati. I repeat, this is the Sadhana Paddhati. And hope you got clarity. And this is a deep and vast topic, but I have tried to explain it in a simple way. And now, let's see the real purpose of this video. Whether it is Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, or Advaita, all these three paths are sacred and important in our spiritual journey. But today, we see people fighting and arguing. Some say Dvaita is the greatest. Some say Vishishtadvaita is the best. And some say Advaita alone is the supreme truth. And there are even voices criticizing Ādi Śaṅkarācārya and Advaita and disrespecting Lord Shiva. I don't want to name that person or that organization because this is not about individuals. It's about a mindset. A mindset born from ignorance, arrogance, and a misguided understanding of what Sanatana Dharma truly is. Bharat has always been a land of unified diversity. I repeat, Bharat has always been a land of unified diversity. Bharat is the only nation that has thrived with so many different paths, so many methods of worship, and with so many gods. Though these gods' paths and beliefs seem different, they had lived together peacefully for centuries. None of these gods or paths could divide us for all these years. But now, some gurus are emerging who try to break this unity using philosophy and God as a weapon to separate seekers instead of uniting them. In Bharat, these paths, sampradayas, and gods never fought saying, my way is the best and the others are wrong. That thinking belongs to desert religions. And also, we as Indians, we have a disease. We keep forgetting. We forget that our temples were destroyed. We forget that our libraries were burnt and our knowledge was stolen. And we also forget that millions were killed or converted and our land was divided. And we have been divided by caste, region, language, etc. Islamic rule and British rule tried many times to break Sanatana Dharma. We forget all these things. Yet Sanatana Dharma survived because it was not built on one book or in a single individual. It was built on the collective wisdom of the seekers who saw the divine in everything and who saw the divine in countless ways, because it was rooted in the experience of truth and not in blind belief. And that's why this land, our Bharat, could hold Shiva, Vishnu, Shakti, Surya, etc. all under one sky. And even after 75 years of freedom and independence, the war against Sanatana Dharma has not ended. Today, it wears a different face. Externally, we see all political games and foreign influences that seek to weaken these roots. And internally, some politicians work against the growth of Sanatana Dharma. Some even want to erase it. And the words like Hindu, Hindutva, or even Bharat Mata Ki Jai have become communal in this country. On top of all this, a new form of division is emerging, that is spiritual division, where people are made to fight with each other over their paths and superiority. And Sanatana Dharma was never about my path versus your path. It was about the journey itself, the journey towards truth. And if Sanatana Dharma declines, this nation declines. And if this nation declines, we, the Hindus and the children of Sanatana Dharma, we all become orphans. So remember this. Whoever tries to divide us, be it a politician, a leader, or a foreign force, or even a so-called guru, let us not encourage them. Let us not become instruments of division. And let us remember who we are. One civilization, one dharma, one spirit flowing through countless forms. And keeping this in mind, let me now share my view, how I see these three paths and how they all rise together towards the ultimate truth. Imagine there are 1,000 steps to climb, and at the very top, that is on the 1,000th step, is Jnana. The steps below, all 999 of them, are filled with karma, bhakti, dharma, daya, dana, nyaya, puja, anusthana, japa, etc. And for all those 999 steps, there is no difference between Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita and Advaita. They all follow them. The distinction or the difference occurs only at the 1,000th step. Madhvācārya saw Dvaita on that final step. Rāmānujācārya saw Vishishtādvaita on the topmost step. And Śaṅkarācārya experienced Advaita on that ultimate step. If anyone climbs up to the 999th step or even the 990th step, they will have a clear view of what is on that final step. Instead of reaching the top and see what's there, people stand on the ground and argue or fight on what is there on the 1,000th step. We must climb the steps first. When you reach the top, you won't need Śaṅkarācārya, you won't need Rāmānujācārya or Madhvācārya to tell you what's there. You will know it for yourself. And when 999 steps are the same, should we focus on the difference at the 1,000th step, or should we celebrate the common journey? I myself consider miles away from that first step. And let me give you another example. If you want to correct a 10th class student's exam paper, you must at least have a degree, right? That means you should be more qualified than that 10th class student, correct? In the same way, before we criticize Śaṅkarācārya, Rāmānujācārya or Madhvācārya or their paths, we must have a better qualification than them, or we must go beyond them in Jnana. But people today who doesn't know Sanskrit, who have not read the Vedas or scriptures, or who don't even have the maturity to treat other sampradayas properly, they simply criticize these great masters. They have no shame because they call themselves as proud followers of some so-called guru who doesn't even know the meaning of that word. And when an unprepared mind studies Vedanta, it doesn't expand their hearts. It only inflates their ego. They fall deeper into ignorance, and sadly, they lead their followers also into the same darkness. This ego and this false superiority is what truly harms Sanatana Dharma. I'm saying all this only for one reason. Be aware of such false gurus and be clear about what Sanatana Dharma truly stands for. Don't get distracted and divided by these arguments. And don't let these fellows divide us. Let's be united. And that's all I wanted to say. And finally, I don't say Advaita is great, Dvaita is great, or Vishishtadvaita is great. I simply say, first you climb and reach the top and you will see it for yourself. And may this land be free from false, impotent and pseudo-Vedantic gurus. May our world be filled with real gurus like Dattatreya, Yajnavalkya, Śaṅkarācārya, Rāmānujācārya, Madhvācārya and other great gurus who lit the path of truth for us. And finally, follow your path and respect other sampradayas. I repeat, follow your path and respect other sampradayas. Let's try to at least climb a few steps in that direction. Thank you.